Hello, everybody. I'm Emily. I'm the marketing events coordinator here at Meetup. And today we are joined by special guest Danielle Bayard Jackson, a friendship coach or friendship educator. And she is here to explain the 3 kinds of loneliness along with strategies for mitigating each of them. After this session, you'll leave with a greater understanding of how to deepen your connections you already have and finding a community to feel a greater sense of belonging. So before we get into it, I'm just going to go over a few guidelines and the agenda. So the event is recorded, but don't worry, you will not appear in the video. It's just me and Danielle who you can see. There's also a mute courtesy. Your audio will be muted during this event, but if you have questions, be sure to submit them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll be going through them at the end of the event. And closed captioning is also available. To turn it on, just click on the live transcription icon at the bottom of your screen and select your preference. So for today, we're just doing a quick introduction right now, followed by a presentation with Danielle, and then a Q&A session at the end. And before Danielle finally takes it away, I'm just going to give her a quick introduction so you all get to know her a little bit better. Danielle is a certified friendship coach and a national speaker dedicated to teaching women how to create and maintain meaningful female friendships. She has been featured in NBC News for her expertise, and her advice has been quoted in several other media outlets, including Wall Street Journal, The Washington Post, and Insider. So thank you so much, Danielle, for being here with us. I can't wait to see what you have, and I'm going to hop off, but I'll be back for Q&A.
Okay, I'm so excited and making sure everything's aligned. I'm so excited to be here. I know everyone starts their presentation with like, I'm so excited to be here, but I really am. And let me tell you, before we jump into this, the reason this is such a cool moment is because I was a high school English teacher and I used Meetup to start a book club so that I didn't have to talk to kids all day. I could talk to adults. And now as a friendship coach and educator, I often refer people to the platform. And so it's cool to be here in this capacity and partner with you all to talk about ways to end loneliness. So I'm going to share my screen here, the typical stalling announcement, because what I think I want to make really clear before we begin is, I don't know about you, but you know how sometimes you go to these presentations and they give you something like very inspirational and you still leave like, right, but what do I do with that information? We're going to make sure that you have tangibles by the time we're done here so that you feel equipped and confident to move forward. Okay, that sounds good to you? Here we go. So about a year ago, I had a phone call from the NFL. They're like, this is the NFL. And they were asking me to come and speak to one of their teams because they wanted to address the players' wives and girlfriends, or I guess I should say their partners, the team's partners. Because since the members of the football team travel so often, they are often susceptible to loneliness. Maybe they moved to a different city for their boyfriend and his team, and now they find, I don't have friends, I don't know where to go. So as you can imagine, getting this call, my face is like, what the heck, what is happening? The reason I was so kind of surprised that there was this kind of attention to friendship coaching is because I started as a high school teacher. So I spent 6 years in the classroom teaching English to juniors and seniors. And then between classes, and after class, the students would come to me with their friendship issues. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I was kind of coaching them through those issues. Well, when I got out of the classroom and I got into public relations, I foolishly thought, oh, I'm leaving that drama behind. No more teenagers. Little did I know that here I am now working as a publicist, and high achieving women are still having issues. I have a picture here of Olivia Pope. In my mind, when I was a publicist, I was Olivia Pope. So that's why, don't tell me any different. Okay. So in both of these spheres, as both a teacher, as both a publicist, I'm surrounded by people who are confessing to me their friendship issues. And it's helping me to understand, wow, at every stage of life, you're struggling trying to figure out how to relate to other people in a platonic way. And friendship is so important. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite pieces of research that I like to share, just to kind of put this all in context, they find that the number one thing that determines your overall life satisfaction and overall well-being is not your marital status, It's not your income status, it's the quality of your relationships. So if that has such a significant impact on how satisfied we feel with our lives, why isn't it normal yet to get support for that area of your life the same way you would for, as a business coach, or to get a counselor to help you in your marriage? And we have to normalize getting support for our platonic relationships, which is why I'm so glad that you all are here today. So it's crazy to see that being a high school teacher and a publicist and things have been orchestrated in such a way that now I get to serve as specifically a women's friendship coach and educator. And now it's my life. And this is what I do. And I'm so happy to be trusted with people's personal issues in this space. I think the reason why this has blown up is not necessarily because of me. I think it's because of the time that we're in right now. You can blame it on a lot of things, but we are lonelier than ever. I know you've seen the headlines. I know you hear people talking about it. You've seen the news segments, but it's true. And I think because we feel lonely, the first thing we go to is, oh, I need friends. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I think it's increased our dialogue around wanting friendships, deepening friendships, and what it means to have connection. So even though friendship isn't the only solution to loneliness, we're going to talk about how it does help. So before we do, let's talk about loneliness itself and see what's going on here. I think one issue why we're lonely and we're having less than satisfactory friendships is because we view friendship as a social pleasure, as recreation. It's fun. When I want an escape from my life, I go to my friends. And because of that, we don't necessarily talk about it from a wellness perspective, how friendship is essential to our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So I just want to show you something here. I want you to look at these three images just to put some things in perspective. We see images that represent maybe different aspects of our health: obesity, drinking, smoking cigarettes. We see these things and we think behaviorally, we think health-wise, and we think, oh, obviously these things are not okay, they're dangerous, they're alarming, and you might think about health or bad habits. However, loneliness is just as serious as those things that I just showed you, these images. One piece of research that a lot of connection experts like to refer to, there's a study that was done that found that being lonely is just as physically detrimental to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Smoking, something we'd explicitly dismiss as, okay, obviously I know that's not okay. I know that there are, health complications and consequences there, but loneliness, it is the very same impact. It leads to depression, anxiety, poor sleep. I know I'm not sharing anything here that's new to most of you, but I just want to put in context the urgency of how critical it is for us to kind of figure out how to understand this and then manage it. In fact, it's so serious that Vivek Murthy, who was the 19th Surgeon General of the United States, made it his number one issue: loneliness. And for the first time, people kind of lifted an eyebrow like, wait, but how is that a health thing? Because as he found, everything that's a more explicitly, openly health issue traced back don't have social connections. It has a greater impact on your life than I hesitate in saying this, but it's true. Okay, you still need to eat healthy and have good habits, but when they talk about the increase of how the impact of certain behaviors on your life, having a connection to other people has a greater range. The last piece of research I'll share with you to kind of contextualize this issue before we move forward, of a study that found more than 100 influencing factors on depression. The number one preventer is having someone to talk to. So it is that serious. You're like, okay, Danielle, enough of depressing me. Okay. So we get that it's serious. Of course, naturally, the question becomes, what do we do with that information? So let me walk you through how we're going to operate today so you can follow along with kind of how we're going to navigate this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to check our attitude. Maybe that's triggering for some of you. My mom used to give me that phrase a lot growing up: check your attitude, girl. But we're going to check our attitude specifically toward loneliness. So that's kind of our emotions. How do we feel about loneliness, and how is that setting some of us up? Then we're going to define it, because the more that you can speak about loneliness with like this granularity, this more specific language, the better equipped you are to manage it. And then finally, we're going to figure out what the heck do we do about it now that we understand it. Okay, so that's the steps. Those are the steps I'm going to take you through today to kind of unpack this, better understand it, and feel confident that we know exactly what to do to come out of a personal season of loneliness. Okay. All right. So first, let's check our attitude. Let's check our attitude. Here are 3 truths about loneliness that we need to get on the same page of before we move forward. First of all, if you're in a season where you feel lonely, you are not weird. You are not pathetic. There's not something inherently wrong with you. So let's shake off any embarrassment or shame attached with feeling lonely right now. Okay. The second thing is that loneliness does not last forever. Some of us know that intellectually to be true, but we need to be reminded of it when we're tempted to speak in absolutes. Oh, we think that what our present situation is what the rest of our lives are going to be. And we think, oh, this is how it's always going to be. I can't believe this is my life. What's wrong with me? All of that internalizing, all of that doomsday language is not going to do us any favors. So let's make sure we all kind of manage our reasonable ideas of what loneliness means and what it does not mean. And finally, we have to watch out because loneliness is only exacerbated by withdrawal. So the funny, tricky, stealthy thing about loneliness is your natural reaction might be to withdraw from people because you feel so lonely. You feel like nobody else gets it. You feel like they won't understand. So you isolate. But isolating contributes to your loneliness. It's a vicious cycle. So one little analogy I like to share to put things in context, the same way when you're hungry, it signals you need food, and you're feeling parched, which signals you need water. When you're lonely, it just signals you need connection. It is not anything that is revealed about you as a person. It signals you are hungry for connection. So let's figure out how to go and get fed. Okay. First, let's talk about the 3 different kinds of loneliness. The first is intimate loneliness. This means there's a lack of intimacy, a need to be really known. A lot of us have this need met through a romantic spouse, like a partner or spouse, romantic partner, or like a very best friend we've known forever. We feel like so safe here with them. Intimate loneliness. We are not known. Then there's relational loneliness. Maybe it speaks to a lack of friends, of, relationships. I have 2 images here to represent different ends of the spectrum of relational loneliness. So it could be with our coworkers. Maybe it's nothing serious or deep, but we know people. There are other people we know of and have relationships with, or it could refer to a close friendship. Either way, relationships with people who know us and we know them. Okay, so we know others. And finally, collective loneliness. So this speaks to a lack of shared identity, a need to belong to something greater than yourself. What I want to do here is have a poll for a moment. We just looked at each type of loneliness. I'd like to know, if you don't mind telling me in this poll, which one speaks most to you? Are you most going through intimate loneliness, the need to feel intimately known? Relational, which is like having some connection, some friendships? Or collective, meaning I feel like I need to be a part of a big group that makes me feel like validated in my various aspects of identity. And maybe you're not sure, and that's okay too. So I'll wait a moment here. I'm curious to see what our thoughts are. And then that kind of helps to give me some data to know where to spend the most time in our presentation today, to know what's most on your heart. Okay. Okay. I don't know if okay. I don't know. Where do the poll results show up? Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. I see it. It gives you time to respond. Okay, great. Oh, interesting. Okay. I gotta say that surprises me. Okay. Intimate and relational. Okay. Okay. They're up there neck and neck. Okay, cool. So that's such good data. Thank you. And that helps to direct me to where, how we're going to spend our time. So let's look at these more in detail and figure out how to solve that, how to kind of quell the pain and discomfort of loneliness in those two arenas. Okay. And thank you for participating in that poll. That really helps me. Okay. So we have intimate, a need to be known, relational, a need to know others, and collective. We need to belong to something greater than ourselves. And to clarify with the collective, you see images here, maybe of church or some kind of organization where you feel a part of something big that validates who you are. And then, I have another image here of a men's group. Okay, so feeling like, okay, yeah, I'm a man and I need to be with other men sometimes and just kind of talk about men's experiences or whatever. But you feel like, okay, I am seen here in this group. Okay, all right. So let's take a look at this. So we checked our attitude, which is like our assessing our feelings toward loneliness and making sure we're on the same page. We all know right now, I'm understanding that we're not weird. We're not strange. There's nothing wrong with us. We got it together, right? Now we defined loneliness. Okay, now I understand it. And then now we understand how we're about to understand how to move, what actions to take. Okay, so I want you to almost look at these different realms of loneliness as almost like these concentric circles, right? So maybe collective speaks outwardly to need to be among other people. Maybe relational speaks to like knowing some people more closely, and intimate into like the smaller spaces of being intimately known. And so what we're going to do is to kind of understand how to come out of these. I'm going to start by giving us some strategies to come out of our collective loneliness, because that's maybe being a part of a larger group, and then how to make friends, because that gets us that relational loneliness, and then how to deepen friendships, because that gives us that more like that platonic intimacy we're all craving. Okay, so we're going to start from the outside in, and hopefully along the way starts giving us some answers as to how to feel better and get more connected. Okay, so let's start with collective loneliness. If this means I need to feel like I belong to something greater than myself, you first need to assess, what is it about your lifestyle? So pretty much the way you live every day. What is it about your lifestyle, your beliefs, or your environment that's making it hard for you to feel a part of something greater than yourself? Are there habits you have, or tendencies that you have, or an environment that you're in that makes you feel disconnected from having a shared identity? Let me help to get you started with something more tangible. Here's an exercise I'd like for you to do. If you have pen and paper, that's great. You just kind of want to just do it mentally, that's fine too. I want you to see how many times you can fill in the blank for this statement. I am blank. Some kind of descriptor of yourself. I am blank. I am blank. I am blank. Okay. I'm going to pause for just a second. I want you to figure out what yours would be. Give me like 4. Come up with 4. For me, those things might be, I am a Black woman. I am a mother. I am a reader. I love to read. That's a part of who I am. I love to read, I am, gosh, I don't know. I don't want to put my business out there too much. Okay. But I have various aspects of my identity. The first part of getting connected and reducing sense of collective loneliness is to have some direction for where to get connected. If collective loneliness is about having a sense of belonging and a shared identity, we have to first look at the fragments of our identity. So if I am a mom, where can I go to feel understood for my unique needs in motherhood? Maybe that doesn't come from my closest friends. Maybe I have really close friends who aren't parents. And while they're supportive and attentive, they don't totally understand what it feels like to have a certain kind of guilt when I can't be available for my kids, or the anxiety when they're out of my presence for too long, or who do I talk to? I need somebody who can validate my identity as a mom. Same thing for a reader. Maybe you're an intellectual and you've been missing like kind of like an intellectual intimacy back and forth with someone, right? What are the aspects of your identity, and where can you go to be validated and seen for that piece of your identity? Something to think about. Something to think about, but that is your first indicator. So once you kind of have that and you're like, oh snap, I never thought about this before. Okay. You have spaces like Meetup. This is not an endorsement. Okay. But you have spaces like Meetup to get you started, to help you find, oh, that's what I've been missing. I haven't been nurturing this aspect of my identity. So of course I'd feel kind of isolated and misunderstood. Where can you get plugged in with those groups? And there are a myriad of other ways. You guys know this. Meetup, you've got Facebook groups, you've got a lot of other things. And if you are like, I don't even know how to start, maybe if you see somebody in a Target, I'm going to keep rolling with the mom example. Okay. If I'm in a Target and I'm standing next to a mom in the diaper aisle, we're going to talk about how to strike up a conversation in just a second with strangers, but maybe I even ask her like, hey, okay, I know this is random, but like which diapers do you get? No, yeah, da da da. Yeah, it's so hard sometimes. And like all I want is sometimes just like another mom who gets it. And I don't know, maybe I need to join like a mom group or something. Are you in one of these mom groups around here? Whatever. Okay. But if you don't know digitally where to go to find a group, you can start by identifying a single person who shares that identity and ask them where they're plugged in that way. Do you know of other mom groups? Do you know of other book clubs? Do you know of other churches? Whatever it is. And maybe they'll plug you in and you can leverage their network, their knowledge, their intel. Okay. Relational loneliness. Having friends. Having some people who know you know them. Hands down, as a coach and educator, as you can imagine, it's the number one question I get. How do I make new friends? And typically it comes with some kind of qualifier. People want to know, how can I make friends as a person in a new city? How can I make friends as a military spouse? How can I make friends as a new mom, a new divorcee, as a person with social anxiety? We all want to know, how can I do this thing with my particular circumstances? I like to share that because if you're feeling like, gosh, I should already have friends. Like, why am I don't know, 40 without friends already? Should I have already? Shake that off right now. You will always be having to make new friends. In fact, there is research that suggests that we shed, or rather replace, half of our friends every 7 years. So of course you're going to go through a natural pruning in your friendship journey every kind of like 7 years or so. So of course you're going to be in a place to welcome new connections. Maybe for you right now in your life, this is that season. Great, because you're here and I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay. So relational loneliness means you're lacking friendships. I could talk about friend making all day, but for the sake of time, I'm going to give you rapid fire 4 quick ways that you can start inviting or positioning yourself to invite connections into your life. Okay. Strategy number 1, go with who you know already. I know that's not sexy. That's not revolutionary, but there's research that shows that a lot of times we're meeting friends who double as another role in our lives. They are also our hairstylist. They're also our barista. They're also our coworker. They're also our cousin. Your family can be your friends. So who do you already know who you like well enough, but you've dismissed them as a potential friend for whatever reason? They're 10 years older than you, so you never thought of them as a friend, or they're a mom and you're not, or she's my hairstylist, that would be weird. Who are you already seeing, spending time with, who you have dismissed as a potential friend? And you could go back and start to kind of pick that up. Okay. The second thing is become a regular somewhere. We all like to collectively reminisce on like how amazing and how easy it was when we were in school to make friends. It's not that everybody was so awesome and then we got like not awesome. Some people did. Some people left their awesome back in high school. But the real question becomes, what was the magic ingredient that made it seem like it was so easy to make friends? Time. Time. At work, you're clocking 40 hours a week with people because that's the number one spot to meet friends as an adult, according to research. At work. At school, you were with those people 40, 50 hours a week. If that's the case, where can I go spend time regularly? I know it doesn't sound very cool to be like, you need a routine and that feels boring, but there's also safety in routine. If you work from home, how can you commit to, okay, every Friday morning, I'm going to work for 2 hours outside of my house at this one particular spot? Why? Because we're creatures of habit. So the people who are there the first Friday you go are probably the same people who are going to be there next Friday morning and the Friday after that. And when I allow myself to show up regularly, I become like a regular. I see the same faces, and it becomes a little bit easier to say hello or to ask to borrow something or to give a compliment because we see each other all the time. Maybe I can go on a walk the same path every day or walk my dog at the same time. Now, I want to put this caveat because whenever I give that tip, unfortunately, women remind me that we have to be careful and diligent about and vigilant about routines and doing things routinely, unfortunately, because there are people out here with bad intentions and we have to be mindful. And it's sad that things are that way. So I just want you to take from this strategy what makes sense for you. But the main message is, how can you be somewhere with a rhythm so you can see the same faces and get to know each other? Okay. Number 3, make your desire known. How can you get your private need of wanting to have friends met if you're keeping it to yourself because you're embarrassed that you need new friends? Okay, make it known. Here are 2 ways you can make it known. 1, text a super connector. These are the people who like to bring other people together. I like to consider myself one. I like to be like, girl, Maria, you should meet my friend Tiffany. You know what? I'm going to put you guys in the text. Okay, who's that person? They don't have to be your friend, maybe just somebody you know, a super connector. Then text them with a script like, hey, I'm looking to get more plugged in. And I thought of you because you're always out and about and involved in something exciting. I wanted to ask, is there anything around town worth checking out? Or are there any like events that I'm not aware of? Because they're either going to give you an answer, which is great, or they might go the extra mile and say, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have a book club every Tuesday. You should come. You should come. Or yeah, we go to happy hour once a month. You should come. And you get an invite to be a +1. But people cannot help you if you're privately holding what your need is. So either talk to a super connector, or 2, use social media to your advantage. If you're moving to a new city or you're trying to get involved in some way, tell people like, oh, looking to get plugged in around town. Any recommendations? People love to give their 2 cents. Okay. They might flood you with certain responses. Make your desire known. And finally, talk to strangers. This goes against advice that you've been getting from your parents, but I'm going to say you should do it. There's tons of research that says it actually can boost your mood. Just 10 minutes can boost your mood. And that for your social and relational health, you only need 1 meaningful social interaction a day. So talk to a stranger. Danielle, how do I do that without looking like a weirdo? Okay. I'm going to go through this quickly for the sake of time. My method is called the Seek method, SEEQ, to start a conversation with literally anyone. S is for create smiles through compliments. Compliments. Danielle, that's not new information. It works. Okay? Compliment them on anything. Don't make it weird. Don't linger, but just like a matter of fact compliment, because it shows warmth. It helps to alleviate their secret fear of rejection. We always think we're scared of being rejected. So are other people. So how can I bring your guard down and show you I'd be a welcome candidate to welcome you in by making you feel warm, making you feel good? Research shows we tend not to give compliments though, because we overestimate how awkward we'll be and we underestimate how much others will appreciate it, but it feels good. Give a compliment. 2, everyday small talk. But I hate small talk. Yeah, I know. But small talk leads to big talk. The trick about small talk is you have to come out of it as quickly as possible. So if it's pouring down rain and I'm walking into a Target's going to be all my examples, by the way. And we both walk in and we're like, oh, God, we're dripping wet. Okay. I might say something about the rain to the person next to me. And I'm trying to gauge their attitude, their receptiveness. That's why I use small talk, because it's safe. If they engage me, then I'm going to stop talking about the rain and gradually segue into something different. Small talk is just my in, and then I'm not going to talk about the rain for 30 minutes. Okay. Environmental observations. Comment on literally anything around you. If I'm in a museum looking at a painting and somebody's looking at a painting next to me, and I just kind of say out loud, like, oh, God, her work is so beautiful, right? They're either going to be like, oh, I know. And you launch into a little thing. Or they're going to be like, yeah. To which you can just be like, well, whatever. Even rejection is data. If somebody's cold to you or a little standoffish, okay, that's data. Like, oh, okay, my efforts aren't well spent here. Let me go somewhere where I can get reciprocal energy. That's fine. It's not personal. And finally, ask a question about literally anything. About literally anything. People like to be helpful. Okay. Now, finally, intimate loneliness. Intimate loneliness. Being very personally, deeply known. What is a lifestyle, a belief, or environment that is getting in the way of you being known intimately? Think about that. What habits do you have that might cut you off from being known intimately? Think about that. I'm going to show you two things to help put it in perspective. Two things, and I think it'll put in perspective exactly what you need to do if you want more depth in your relationships. You ready? So the first is Dunbar's number. You may have heard of it now as friendship is becoming an increasingly popular topic in the media, okay? Quick and dirty explanation is the idea is that our brains can only cognitively handle 150 connections. Now, I know some of you here have like, I don't know, 10,000 followers, and you're like, Danielle, I have 10,000 followers. I can handle more connections. Your brain hasn't evolved to handle 10,000 connections. Okay. So 150 connections. And then when we think of that as like concentric circles, smaller and smaller inside of that, it represents the closeness with which we can have with someone. But as you can imagine, the number goes down. Why? Because it requires time to invest in someone, and that's a limited resource. There are 24 hours in a day. That's just math. Then also think about the mental and emotional energy required to really build something with a person. I'm sharing with you, you're sharing with me, I'm showing up for things, I'm listening to you. I can't do that with everyone. This is why my radar really goes off when I hear extroverts talk about how many friends they have. I go, they're probably lonely, because it's about going deep, not wide. And I get a lot of extroverts, charismatic, fun-loving, high-achieving extroverts who seek my help because they have lots of friends, but they're all superficial because they value shaking hands and kissing babies instead of sitting on the couch with one person for 45 minutes at the party. Okay? So the idea is that your brain can only handle 3 to 5 close friendships, and maybe like 10 to 15 what we would call acquaintances, who you kind of regularly maybe kind of see. Sociologically, they're referred to as weak ties, but they serve a purpose too. I'm not going to get into that research today, but you need them too. We need our super close, and we need our like kind of cool. We need all that social fabric. Okay. Why am I showing you this? Because there are 3 things you need to do if you want depth in your friendship. But we can't do this with everybody because there's no time. We have to be strategic about how we invest in people we care about. Okay. So here are the 3 things you need to do if you want to ease your intimate loneliness. Ready? The quick and dirty version. This is developed by friendship expert Shasta Nelson. This is her framework. The first is positivity. It's at the base of the triangle. Why? Because if being together is not a pleasurable experience, I'm not going to elect to build anything else with you because it's not fun. This doesn't mean we need to have a great time all the time. That's not realistic. This doesn't mean toxic positivity where I don't want to hear about your problems. That's an issue. But generally speaking, when I take an aerial view and I look down over the last 10 hangouts that we had, how many of them were filled with chronic complaining, venting about our day, which is okay if it has an end point, but the whole time we're venting, complaining, talking about how our husbands suck, our kids are getting on our nerves, our boss just doesn't get it, he's a jerk. How often when we come together is that the theme and the tone of when we come together? Because it's going to impact how close we can be if our bond is through suffering. In fact, there's research from the Gottmans that suggests that to have a happy relationship, you need a positive to negative ratio of 5 to 1, just because negativity weighs so heavily on us. Some of you might be familiar with the negativity bias. Okay, positivity. Some of us are missing that in our friendships. The next is consistency, meaning I see you or talk to you with some kind of regularity. Maybe for one friendship, that's texting every day. Maybe for another, it's we have a solid hangout every month. But some kind of regularity, I can see and predict that we're going to connect and spend time together. I know it's popular. Some of us say like, oh my gosh, I can go 2 years without talking to my best friends. And okay, I don't mean to laugh. I get it. I get the sentiment. I have very close friends who it feels like we just pick up right where we left off when we come together. In my opinion, that speaks more to your chemistry. But if you're only talking to me once a year, I only know what you're self-reporting to me once a year. I don't intimately know what you're going through every day, what you're struggling with. What does it look like when you come home? What's on your mind? What are your goals? I don't know. I just know what you cherry pick once a year. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. And finally, vulnerability. I know it's popular right now. It's a buzzword. I know a lot of people think, Brene Brown owns the word vulnerability, and she's done really great work in that space. A couple things I want to correct right now that I think might send some light bulbs, okay? A lot of times we hear vulnerability when we close our eyes and we picture somebody bawling their eyes out or telling another person about some horrible thing that happened to them when they were 8. That is vulnerability, but it's like a level 10 on the vulnerability scale. And you can dabble in 1s and 2s. The best way I've heard vulnerability defined is taking a risk that might involve you getting rejected. There's a risk of rejection, but you're going to put yourself out here anyway, because on the other side, there's also the risk of wild acceptance, of being more known once you share that with me. But who knows, this might go this way or this way. I don't know yet, but I'm going to take the risk of doing it anyway. So an example of like a level 1 vulnerability is, let's say I get into like a new friend group and they say, yeah, well, we go to brunch every Saturday. You know what, Danielle, why don't you pick the next spot that we all go to brunch at next weekend? I might be like, okay, cool. Yeah. But then secretly I'm agonizing over it because I'm like, oh my God, what if I pick a place that they don't like? Or they think it's too cheap or not cheap enough? Or what if they like hate it and I look really silly? I'm just going to pick a place. That's like a level 2 vulnerability, but it's vulnerability. I'm going to take this risk. I might be rejected socially, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. That's a risk. Yes, a level 10 is self-disclosing larger things, but you need to kind of, with new people, start with your 1s and 2s and you'll get to the 10s. Another thing I'm going to say, I don't mean it. Let's keep it real. Okay. I don't know any other way. If vulnerability means you're taking a risk of being rejected, it does not mean you're talking about heavy things. Those are not synonyms. Sometimes they're the same, but they're not synonyms. So for example, when you meet a new friend and right out the gate, they're telling you about relatively sensitive things, which include topics about sex, money, addictions, traumas, things like that. For the average reasonable person are pretty, when we're first meeting. Okay. So if a person's doing that, they're telling you about their marriage and behind the scenes, the first time they meet you, that is not vulnerability. And the reason I'm going to say that is because to some extent, this person's comfortable doing it, or maybe even takes pleasure in talking about big things with strangers. Vulnerability means I feel like I might risk being rejected, but I'm going to do it anyway. I just have to put that out there. If you don't like it, email me and let's have a dialogue. Okay. So I want us to, but you need to be vulnerable. There's research that says we tend to like people more after they're vulnerable with us. If this is the hang up for you, I want you to explore what that's about, because some of us feel lonely because we're not comfortable being close to people, but we feel lonely when it comes to intimate loneliness. You see where the disconnect is? So you might have to go like 5% out of your comfort zone. It feels uncomfortable, but it's not unsafe. There's a difference. Oh, this is uncomfortable sharing with you, but it's not unsafe. Oh, it's uncomfortable asking for help. To my hyper independent ladies who are listening, I don't really want to like ask for help, but it's safe and it will make you closer to your friends when you do. So if you've been having superficial friendships and they don't feel close, how much of yourself are you revealing? Yes, there is a risk that they withdraw or they misunderstand. There's also a chance that they know you better and can love on you better because they know you better, what you need, what really makes you excited, but you have to let yourself be known. Some of us I know need to take that offline and like sit with that a little bit. But once we get these 3 things in order, how can I get plugged in a big way to quell my collective loneliness? How can I make friends to kind of solve that relational loneliness? And how can I let myself be more known to have intimate loneliness, then I think those things all together will help us feel more connected, because loneliness is not about not having relationships. It's about how you feel about the relationships that you do have. I'm willing to bet if you take these three things and put them together, there's something in there that will help you feel a little less isolated and a little more connected to the world around you. Okay, so I know I'm at my time for speaking. We're going to open it up to Q&A, but just something to let everyone sit with, Emily.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. I was like so zoned in on you and everything you had to say. I was writing down tips for myself while you were going through, and I love how you made it so relatable too, that we can take it into our own life. So we were getting a lot of questions, so I'm gonna just hop right into it so we can get some answered. Let's see. First question I see is from Brian. He asked, when should I give up on a possible relationship? When should I give up on established relationship?
The short answer there is whatever it is you need that you feel like you're not getting, because I'm assuming if you're questioning releasing it, that means there's some need that's not being met. Before you do that, I would just challenge you and say, do the people you're considering releasing, do they know the need that's going unmet? Because a lot of us will be like, oh, God, she just doesn't reciprocate. I feel like I'm always initiating. You know what? I'm done with her.
Mm-hmm.
Does she know that you feel like it's lopsided? It doesn't have to be accusatory. You never initiate. It can be an invitation. Yeah, I know this the last couple times I suggested where we hang out, and I'm sure you're sitting on some ideas too. So, do you want to contact me next week and let me know something you'd like to do together? Okay. So my first clean and dirty answer would just be, before you release, do these people know what you need so that they have a chance to meet your needs?
That's great advice. Something I can totally even relate. I get in my head and just like, I tried way too hard. Like I'm just moving on. But got to put it in perspective. Anonymous asked, I tend to be awkward when meeting new people. It makes me feel insecure. How can I deal with that?
Yeah. So at the risk of sounding life coachy, it is about your mindset. So a lot of times when we are socially awkward or socially anxious, it's because you have the spotlight on you. So as you're talking to people, you're thinking, God, does that look stupid what I just did? Did that sound dumb what I just said? You're on you. And I know this is easier said than done, but you have to turn that spotlight to the other person. How can you get curious about them? Oh, I wonder where they got that tattoo from. I wonder what it means. Wow, she seems really cool. I'm going to ask her about herself. What did she just say? I'm going to ask more questions about that. It takes the focus off of you, and it allows you to relax instead of being so hyper aware of what you say, what you do, how you sound, how you look. So that would be my first, and that would be my quick and dirty response to that is try to stop focusing so much on your performance and focus more on this person and getting curious about them.
I love it. Yeah, I feel like most people don't even notice anyways if
they really
they're
don't.
not focusing on you. Someone else asked, what techniques can you share for starting a conversation and to help someone overcome social anxiety?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about that with the Seek method. So any one of those can get you started. And then again, with the social anxiety, I think putting the spotlight on others is really helpful. And the last thing I'll say about the social anxiety thing is I'm just giving tough love, okay? I want you to think about what you're doing that is helping you with social anxiety. Because something tells me that being on TikTok and Instagram and saving a bunch of videos and commenting on a bunch of videos of other people being like, oh my God, social anxiety is the worst, and making jokes and you being like, I know, ha 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 ha. And that's what you do is not helpful. At some point, you have to give your brain an experience to show itself, oh, I can do this. That was awkward, but I can do this. You will not get that experience for your brain if you're on the couch scrolling and laughing all the time at social anxiety, and it becomes like an identity and like, that's our thing. We're socially anxious. No. Disrupt that and make yourself talk to a stranger. Make yourself take a deep breath and ask your coworker like one more question about themselves to show your brain, I can do this.
Very true. Carol asked, what if you suffer from all three types of loneliness?
Baby steps. I know it can be overwhelming to be like, oh my God, all of that's me. I think that says something about maybe what season of life you're in. You know, I'm a coach, I'm not a psychologist, but one thing I'd advise against is getting overwhelmed. So like right now in this moment, you might think like, oh my gosh, all of that's me. Don't go into that spiral of what does this say about me? What does this say about like my life? Like what's wrong with, okay, which one would you like to take a step toward today? Personally, I think maybe getting started with the collective, like being part of a group where you feel kind of seen in who you are is helpful. And then likely within that group, there will be subgroups. You kind of meet your people you kind of vibe with, and then you invest time in them, and then you can be like more known by them. So baby steps, don't get overwhelmed. What can you do today toward collective loneliness? And then go from there.
Thank you. Kimberly asked, can you define the difference between being alone and loneliness?
Sure. So we hear this all the time with like those like celebrities, right? They've got tons of people and all these things. And then they're like, I'm so lonely. And we're like, girl, what? Like your life's amazing. So to me, that'd be an example of maybe loneliness because like I said just a couple moments ago, it's not about having relationships, it's about how you feel about the relationships you've had. There's a lot of people who are very satisfied with their relationships and they also really like alone time. I am one of them. I am like you're a girl's girl. I love hanging out. I love all the things. I'm a super friend. And I'm going to need to be alone after this because I very much love me time as well. So alone is just I'm physically not with other people. Loneliness might be I feel disconnected in spite of having people. And a lot of this is relative because there are people who are, you know, a lot of it's relative too. So maybe kind of look at that, but alone time is actually very necessary. You should be,
Mhm.
you know, by yourself. I'm worried about people who cannot be by themselves. They always need something going on to distract maybe from their thoughts. I don't know. So there's a difference, but we all experience loneliness, so it's nothing to be ashamed about.
Yep. I'm the same way. I love being with people, but I also need my alone time.
Yes.
I appreciate it. SG asked, I work remote since COVID. I feel lonely at work. How do I
Mm.
overcome that for those who work remotely and need connections and coworkers don't have interest to meet us and we all have busy lives?
Yeah, yeah. So baby steps. The first thing is like we gave the example during the presentation, is there somewhere else you can work where there are people? This is the easiest thing. So I know it's like, oh, you got to be in your house. Is there a way you can take the laptop and just go among other people? Just be among other people, because that's when things start to serendipitously happen. But I have to be among them would be the first one. If there's some kind of condition that doesn't allow you to, and you have to be in the house, how can you actively look for social groups that aren't related to what you do for a living, but other aspects of your identity, like we talked about? And then this is kind of annoying and maybe sounds general, but being approachable when you are out. Because I know sometimes people will go out and there's a term for it, it escapes me now, but we'll show up physically, but we don't show up. So maybe I go out while I'm working from home and then I'm like this and like this. And if I make eyes with someone, I'm like, I mean, come on, you know? So I'm also not saying like go around like, you know, to everybody, because that's also strange. Okay. But how can I do little things to show I'd be open? So maybe if I make quick eyes with someone, maybe it's just kind of like, you know, or maybe if I'm on the phone, I periodically look up and allow myself to just kind of scan the room and put my head up, you know, so those things show, man, she seems open. So if somebody was looking for someone to talk to, you look receptive. But yeah, it starts with just getting out socially, maybe taking a walk at the same time every day, like going a walk around your block at noon every day. You're going to see the same people picking up their kid at the bus stop, walking their dog at the park, and it just helps to have that connection. And then also let yourself have social interactions. So if you go to Target or something, you know, maybe challenge yourself to talk to the cashier for like just like 30 seconds more, because that's enough to boost your mood. And then hopefully from there, I always say friendship starts with rapport, and rapport starts with hello. So just worry about saying hello every day to someone, and just some of those will turn into real relationships over time.
That's great. Yeah, I've had that experience working remote. I actually also recently moved new cities. So when I worked remote in my hometown, like it was easy because I knew people, but
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to get out on walks, going to coffee shops, like trying to stick to a routine so I
Good.
can see similar people.
You got it, Emily.
Trying. Yuri asked, how do I transition from small talk to a deeper conversation?
Okay, so there's research out of the University of Kansas that shows that it takes about 50 hours to feel like someone's like a cool acquaintance that you kind of like know. 90 hours to feel like they're a friend, and 200 to feel like they're a best friend. So the very first thing is it's going to take time. I'm seeing a lot of people get discouraged because they expect a fast friendship. They want that hit of like feelings and connection, like the first hangout. When they don't get it, they're like, oh, it might take time. Of course, it's going to be awkward. You don't know each other's humor yet. I know I taper down my humor a little bit because I'm trying to gauge you. What's too much, you know? So we're learning, you know, what's an overshare, what's not. What does she feel good with? Okay, so yes, it's going to be awkward. That's not a signal to stop. That's a signal to keep going until it doesn't feel awkward anymore. Okay, so there's that. It requires time. And then the second thing is you kind of want to watch their cues about what to share. So if you've tried kind of opening up a little bit and they didn't really match that, okay, you know, so you kind of want to also watch what they look like they're open to. And then you want to get away from go to standard conversations all the time. So I know we talked about small talk, but you do want to come out of that. So one trick I like to do is just like a quick one is origins. Ask about people's origins, not necessarily like ethnicity, but their origins. So for example, if they suggest a restaurant that you guys should go eat at, I'm going to ask like, oh, how did you find out about this place? The origin story about this place. Oh, did your parents always take you to a place like this? Like, is this why you like, you know, eating this kind of food? Did you like grow up on this? That's it. They won't realize you're doing it, but everything they give you, ask about the origin of that thing, of that idea, of that habit, of that tradition, because it's personal without being too personal. So me saying like, oh, why'd you choose this spot? Is this one of your go-tos? I'm setting it up for you to give me personal information about why you like this place or not. So getting close might not look like an obvious, let me tell you about my childhood. It is a slow and sweet discovering of each other. I know that sounds very like, but you know, okay. So give it time and then ask about the origins. That's like a little trick to fast track getting to know someone.
I like that trick. We got another question from Susan. She's asking about like after you meet new people, how do you protect yourself and keep yourself safe and recognize red flags to notice when people are being unsafe?
Yeah. Okay. I struggle with this because what I have to say on this is not a popular opinion. And if you don't like it, please email me. Let's have a conversation. That's so interesting. Okay. I know that when people ask about red flags and how to protect themselves, in my experience, that comes from a place of hurt. If the first question on your mind of meeting new people is how can I guard, protect, and watch for tricks, reveals a place of hurt. That's the first thing. I think that you should have, I know there's a lot of talk around boundaries. What are the things that make you feel good and feel safe? And how can you give from those places? So in the book that I'm writing, that'll be in bookstores near you in early 2024, I talk about affirmative boundaries. So maybe I don't like going to certain places. I'm not going to say, hey, I don't want to hang out in these places. That's just a boundary I have because it's resistant and it's from the negative. I'm going to say, okay, well, I prefer to hang out in places like this because it just, I don't know, they feel more fun to me. It's the same thing. My message is I'm not going to that place over there, but instead I'm telling you what I would love to do, a place I want to give from instead of what I won't do. As long as you can think of what makes me feel good and feel safe, and how can I engage in dynamics that make me feel safe and protected, that should be your guide as opposed to trying to commit to memory all the red flags you should look out for, because it means you're going into friendships trying to look for warnings. And I wonder what could happen if you just went into it with like curiosity instead of trying to protect yourself. But I know, again, that's easier said than done. So if there are certain complexes, traumas, or experiences you've been through, and you're noticing that it is affecting how you just kind of connect with new people, I would encourage maybe getting some support so that you can kind of enter relationships in a less cynical and sensitive space.
Thank you. Aisling asks, do you have any advice on being honest with friends on how you feel in the way that you won't provoke an argument as assertive, but not mean?
Yes, yes. I'm really filtering what I say because this is not my event. So I'm like, let me keep Meetup's brand great. Okay. But yeah, huge. That's a huge issue a lot of us have, right? Because they're our friends. We want to be cool. And the risk of saying something that turns them off or makes them see us differently doesn't feel good. That feels so threatening, especially because friendship is such a voluntary relationship. We choose each other, then we can unchoose each other just as easily. We're tight or we're close, I guess we'll say, we're kind of tight with each other. And then the next day, like they kind of ghost us. So it's so fluid and we come in and out that we don't want to risk saying something that makes somebody unchoose us because you like me, you think I'm fun and interesting. I don't want to tick you off and you withdraw. So first, let me validate that fear. That is a very real fear. But in addition to that, you deserve to be in friendships where you feel safe to bring up the hard stuff. And this is where secure attachment really comes into play because you have a willingness to trust and you believe that you have worth. So if I believe I have worth and I have a willingness to trust, then I think I'm worth bringing this up and I trust that you're going to let me. They might be defensive, they might misunderstand, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have brought it up. You need to go somewhere where you feel seen. But if you have to swallow that because you just want to keep the peace, you are not going to be seen. And y'all aren't going to be as close as you could be. There's research that shows that to get platonic intimacy, to feel close, sometimes you have to go through a little that it actually makes you closer. This is research, okay? So my tip to you there, my advice would be to start with a place of vulnerability. So I like to start by saying the thing that you're afraid of. So in this situation, this person who's asking this question, think about what you're most afraid of and then bringing this up. That should be your opening line. So I might start by saying like, hey, so I wanted to bring something up to you, but I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant because like the last thing I want is for it to be weird between us or anything like that. But I don't know. I just thought it was worth mentioning because I like when we're on the same page. Okay. So right there kind of brings defenses down because you're telling me you're bringing this up because you value me. You're telling me that you were kind of scared to do it, but you're going to do it anyway. And I have to applaud that as a friend. I want to come through for you now. I'm listening. Okay. So start that way. Then you're going to talk about facts. So I'm factually going to say like, hey, I know the last couple times when we linked up, you were running behind. That's a fact. And sometimes when that happens, it's just, I don't know. It makes me like really anxious while I'm waiting for you in the parking lot. And then it kind of like throws off the plans for the rest of the day. Okay. That's a fact. It made me feel this way when this factual thing happens. Okay. And then I'm going to go into asking questions. So instead of like, you are always late. And it's kind of annoying. That's an accusation. I'm going to ask, what's going on? Do we need to go to places that are closer to your house, or is like 6 o'clock is not like a good time to meet up for you? What's going on? I'm getting curious because I'm showing you I care, but I'm also letting you know I don't like that thing. And then we're going to work collaboratively to figure out something moving forward that we need to do. That's how you have a hard conversation. Vulnerable opener. You talk about the impact of their behavior, not their behavior. You ask questions, and then you come up with some kind of solution together so everybody feels good.
Thank you. That is great advice. Unfortunately, we have to end on that one. We are out of time, but thank you so much for being here and giving so much great advice for everyone to take away. I'm going to include your links in the chat right now so that people can keep up with you. So if you guys want to follow along with Danielle, her social media and her website is linked in the chat. And before we go, I'm just going to share a few more housekeeping slides. So we launched a podcast with our CEO, It's called Keep Connected, and Danielle was actually on it. So if you want more from Danielle, you can go ahead and check that out. You can scan the QR code or go to meetuppodcast.com, and I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, and we are also now on TikTok, which is exciting. If you want to check it out, you can follow us at Meetup, and we post really fun and engaging content on there. So we'd love to have you guys follow us. And as a final reminder, a recap of this event will be up on our Community Matters blog at meetup.com/blog in a few days. It should be at the beginning of next week. So thank you all again for joining, and thank you, Danielle, for coming here and sharing all your insight.
This was amazing. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone for having the courage to show up and figure out what you need to do to have more connection. So thank you for having me. And thanks to Meetup for facilitating this conversation.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.